Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a new reading vlog. I am looking a little bit rough. It is the end of the day on a Sunday. I haven't started thinking about Monday yet because why would I do that? But I wanted to start this reading vlog project, which is going to probably take place over the end of February into March. And it is a colour-based reading vlog challenge, if you couldn't tell by the title. For those of you who don't know this about me, once upon a time I was a bookseller. I spent 3 or 3.5 years working at Borders before it closed down here in Australia. And yeah, we did very commonly get asked to find books by the colour because people couldn't remember the title or the author or even what it was about. They just knew that the cover was a particular colour. Every now and then I like to do one of these challenges, and that's just because I'm trying to read down my TBR, and I happen to have a lot of pink books, and pink is my favourite colour, if you couldn't tell. So yeah, I have 4 physical books. I also have a stack of ebooks, which are not my highest priority in this, although one I will include because it's part of my March TBR, which should have definitely gone up because this video probably won't go up until the end of March. But yes, I have a stack of pink books and I need to read them, and I want to read them. And so this vlog is my way of prioritizing them. So the first book that I'm going to definitely try and get to, in fact, it's the one that I'm probably going to read tonight, is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. It's the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series. I've been loving it. The front cover looks more green just because all of the details are green, but it's actually a really gorgeous light pink. So I'm very, very excited. I want to get into this because I love Emily and Wendell's story. Another one I'm really excited about reading, and again, this is the conclusion to a series, is Once Smitten, Twice Shy by Chloe Liese. This is part of the Wilmot sisters. And yes, I've loved everything in this series so far, and I've heard that this is the best one yet. It's beautiful. It really is. I have Cross-Checked by Julia Connors, which was a total cover buy because it's pink. This is a hockey romance. It's the 3rd book in the series, but it's one of those series where I believe you can just pick up any book because the books follow different couples. And I think this one, why did I pick this one up? Oh, the female protagonist is the first female general manager of a professional hockey team, and he is a single dad. So that one sounded very intriguing to me. And then the other one that I have is The Kiss Countdown by Etta Easton, which I've been meaning to read for ages. I have no excuse for why I haven't picked it up sooner. I know that there is a sequel coming out, or the 2nd book in a series or something like that coming out this year. I definitely want to pick this one up, prioritize it. And then the ebook that I'll definitely read is The 7 Rules for Moving On by Jess Hardy, which is a novella-length contemporary romance. I have plenty of options. We're going to have a lovely time reading pink books because pink makes me happy. I'll be back later with some updates on Emily Wilde. All right, lovelies. I have finished Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series. I'm assuming this is the last book in the series. There are plenty of ways where there could always be more Emily Wilde stories, but this does kind of conclude in a very efficient way all of the ongoing plot stuff that's been happening in the series so far. So it's the 3rd book in the series. Basically anything I say from here on out is spoilers. If you don't want to hear about that, just jump to when I start talking about the next book. There'll be timestamps. So we have Emily and Wendell, and they are finally returning Wendell to his home. So in the previous book, Emily had travelled to Wendell's home where he was exiled years earlier, and his stepmother took the throne after killing his father. And at the end of Emily's last visit, she had managed to poison the queen. So Wendell has come back. He's going to reclaim his throne and the people of his kingdom. Wendell is one of those really interesting characters because there's so many little quirky things about him, but at his core, he is Fae. And the Fae are unpredictable in their nature, and there are many times throughout the book where Emily makes a note of, well, he's still the Wendell that she knows, but she sees the Fae in him, sometimes more than others. Anyway, so they arrive eventually back at the castle, and then they discover that the queen, who hasn't died yet, but they can't find her, has laid a curse upon the lands, and so the lands are slowly being poisoned just as she is being poisoned and dying. And so a big part of the first half of the book is them trying to figure out how to find the queen. As with all the other books, what Emily does is she goes back to the stories of the Fae, and really this entire book and everything that happens between Wendell and his stepmother and his taking the throne relate back to a fairy tale that Emily is trying to piece together, and she takes lots of different versions of it to try and find the version that is going to best help them to figure out the problem within the story. So in this case, the story that is currently happening for Emily and Wendell is a parallel to the story that has previously been told. And so that is kind of the underlying principle of this entire book, is Emily trying to figure out how to resolve everything without the same ending as the tale that she had read. Hence why it's called Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, because it inspires her then to rethink her next book, which she wants to look at the different stories and tales told about the Fae and how they might interact with the actual Fae realm. So it is very much a scholarly academic thing, as is Emily's character. Anyway, it's really interesting, and I think it shows a lot of Emily's character, her strength of character, her love for Wendell, but also her passion for the truth and for getting to the root cause of a problem in the most efficient manner. Lots of favourite side characters reappear in this book. It was really cool being able to see the fairy realm and in particular Wendell's kingdom through a different lens, because this time Emily is there with Wendell and she's not so much constantly under threat in this one. For as much as the Queen is a threat and people are unhappy that Wendell has taken the throne, like for the most part they're fine because Emily wins over the lesser Fae in the court, and so they let her know when things are going on. I really enjoyed it. It's just a really fun, cozy fantasy story with a romance thread through it. It's closed door. It's not very explicit. You just have a lot of witty banter and characters who are just perfect for one another in their quirkiness. That is book one for the pink vlog. Also, not that it's going to be easy to see, but I just decided to use pink and green tabs just to match the pink and green of the front cover. Not that there's heaps of tabs in this one, but you know, it kind of looks pretty, half pink, half green. I'll be back when I pick up my next pink book. Hello everyone. I desperately need to brush my hair, but it's like, what time is it? 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock at night, and I have just finished The Kiss Countdown by Etta Easton. And this is a delightful black romance about an event planner who ends up fake dating an astronaut, then ends up fake engaged. And it goes in the vein of all these types of stories. It is open door, but it's probably on the lower steam end for those people who like steam ratings. I don't really care. It's the story of Amory, who is an event planner. At the start of the book, she's kind of in a really difficult place. She was working for a company as their head event planner, and then after her mother was quite sick and hospitalized, and Amory had to spend time with her, but an event that she was planning went awry because she wasn't there. She's kind of blacklisted, and so she's decided to branch out and start her own company, but is trying to rebuild her reputation sort of in the town. She's also broken up with her ex-boyfriend, and her parents are traveling around the country, and so she is kind of at a loss and her financial situation isn't quite secure, etc. One day when she's at her favorite coffee shop, she runs into her ex-boyfriend and his new girlfriend, and he's a piece of work. She ends up claiming that this random guy that she's met once before, who she bumped into and spilt coffee on his shirt, is her boyfriend. And he just goes along with it. In that same encounter, she also accidentally meets his sister, who believes that she is his girlfriend, because apparently he's been talking about having a girlfriend, but it turns out that he doesn't. He's been lying to his family because there's a lot of stuff to do with the fact that he's an astronaut, and his mother in particular is quite concerned by the fact that he keeps going into space. They've also dealt with the loss of another child in the family earlier, historically off page. So like his relationship with his mother is kind of fraught. Anyway, it becomes mutually beneficial for the two of them to date, and then he's quite happy for her to move in. He's got a spare room, although it's terrible, and that's a whole other side thing. They end up spending a lot of time together, and he is absolutely precious. His name is Vincent. Yeah, eventually through a series of situations where they end up staying at his family's childhood home for a week to celebrate his mother's birthday, they end up engaged, which is a whole thing. Yeah, like it was really fun and sweet, really well written. It's all in one POV, and if I had to say my one complaint, given that this is a book called The Kiss Countdown and that the hero is an astronaut, I would have liked more space stuff or just astronaut stuff. Like I would have, but we don't get Vincent's POV, so I understand why we don't have that. I just wish we did. Just the space nerd in me wishes that so badly, but I can put that aside because it's a contemporary romance. So yes, that's the next update for this pink vlog. Had a great time with it. Hello everyone. It is a little while later in this vlog, and I finished the book and I started doom scrolling, so I needed to stop doom scrolling and talk about the book. And that's because the book was amazing, but I happened to open my phone and then everything just spiraled from there. So I finally picked up Once Smitten, Twice Shy by Chloe Liese, which I absolutely love this. This is just a delightful book. It is the third book in the Wilmot Sisters series, and it is the concluding book in the series following three sisters. In this case, we are following Juliet, who is the oldest of the three sisters, and she is also the oldest of a set of twins. And the book opens, she's in Scotland. We know from previous books that she was in a previous relationship that was very, very toxic and emotionally abusive. It's only referenced on page. That ex-partner does not return in this book. And she has made her escape to Scotland, and there she runs into this guy who's also American, and he's also on holiday. And they just have this instant connection when they meet in this little pub. And then their paths cross again months later when she's back home. And it turns out he is one of the best friends of her sister's partner, who also happens to be one of her childhood friends. And the whole thing is just lovely. So Juliet lives with a chronic illness. She has mixed connective tissue disease and celiac disease as well. And so she's living with that. And it's something that at the start of this book, she's only just really been diagnosed with in the last 12 months. So she's learning how to live with it. You know, her everyday experiences are affected by living with this condition. And Will, our MMC, is autistic, and he is helping to run his family's whiskey distillery. He has found that he's never been able to connect with people in a relationship. He really struggles in social situations. He also has a lot of sensory things that he deals with on a day-to-day basis. And so he feels like he's just really bad at romance. And what he wants in life is a partner who will eventually maybe, you know, agree to get married and start a family, but understands that he is who he is and that he may not be able to offer them what he thinks they want out of a romance. And my friends, he is the most precious man. Like, he's a delight. He's quirky and fun, just like Juliet is quirky and fun. And the two of them agree to practice date because she feels rusty. He feels, you know, he's terrible at everything and that he has absolutely no romance game. And so they agree to, you know, practice date. And of course, both of them have feelings for one another. They're both attracted to each other, but they don't want, like, they don't want to blur those lines. It is gorgeous. And the connection that these two have, like, they're connected by a friend that they have in common, but they're also connected by their parents, but they don't realize that until another point in the story. And it was just really, really super sweet as these two find their way to loving each other, and I loved it. I really did. This is hands down my favorite book in the trilogy. So yes, this is a win. It's a win, possibly in the running for my favorite book of March. It's definitely going to be one of my favorite books of the year. I totally forgot to talk about the previous book that I read, which was The 7 Rules of Moving On by Jess K. Hardy, which is a little novella length with less than 200 pages story between Kissy and Andrew, who meet in a small town. It's kind of a resort town, and Kissy, I think, is visiting this small town, and she meets the bartender there, and they kind of exchange stories. And there is a 2-year time jump in this, in which Kissy is in a relationship that ends really badly, and then she comes across Andrew again, and he remembers a lot about her, including the fact that she has a peanut allergy. And it is their story of falling in love, and it's very short, and this one probably would have benefited from being a little bit longer. An extra, 50 pages probably would have helped flesh out the characters and the story just a little bit more. It's a short little novella and it was fun. Maybe not my favourite Jess K. Hardy book, but an interesting one nonetheless. That leaves me with Cross-Checked by Julia Connors, which I'm hoping to read tomorrow night. Hi everyone, now I'm officially back on my ice hockey nonsense for another year. Are we shocked? No. For a couple of reasons today, because literally last night when I finished reading Once Smitten, Twice Shy, I remembered that the Trans-Tasman tournament is taking place this weekend. It's over in New Zealand. It's the 3-game tournament between Australia and New Zealand. Australia plays in Div 2A in the International Ice Hockey Tournament, and New Zealand plays in Div 2B, but they play a 3-game round before the international tournaments, just as a friendly neighbourhood rivalry kind of thing. Last year I went to the 3 games when they were played here in Melbourne. This year they're in New Zealand. I'm hoping they'll be back in Melbourne next year because I'll definitely go. So I saw last night that they were being played and that they were being streamed. And so I had the stream, loaded, ready to go for tonight. Totally forgot during the day that it was on tonight. And because it's in New Zealand, it was earlier here. I started reading Cross-Checked by Julia Connors because it's, it's a pink covered hockey romance, while I was also watching the Trans-Tasman first game, which Australia won 4-0. And, very fitting. And everything else for Australian ice hockey is also, well, the men's tournament is starting to ramp up. I recently went to the women's finals over the previous weekend. That should have been in my Buzzwordathon reading vlog. So yes, that's where my brain is. 100% that's where my brain is. And I have so many things to read, priority books to read at the moment, and all I want to do is just drop everything and read hockey romances, which I don't have an issue with. Like, I genuinely don't, but I also genuinely want to read these other books. So I'm just kind of holding out because the next, I mean, I'm going to watch the rest of this Trans-Tasman tournament this weekend, but the next game that I go to is not until the end of March. So I'm just kind of, I'm channeling some self-control. I don't know if it's going to happen, especially since I read this book last night and that's, it's not helping that self-control. I really enjoyed this. It's a chunky hockey romance book, but it kind of felt appropriate for this story that it was telling. Could it have been shorter? Maybe. But I also don't think anything in here was unnecessarily extra. So this is the third book in the Boston Rebels series. I have not read books 1 or 2 because it's an interconnected standalone series, and I think I said at the start of the video, it's pink, so I picked it. But also this one sounded fun because he is a grumpy single dad hockey player and she's the first female GM in the NHL, and they have a history. She was originally the scout that recruited him for a previous team, and then she was promoted to assistant GM of that team, and then something happened. She was married at the time. Her ex-husband was the assistant coach of that team, and our MMC Ronan got into a fight with her ex-husband. Alessandra, or AJ as she's known, she was married to a guy who was incredibly emotionally manipulative and abusive, and Ronan caught the tail end of an argument and he basically beat the guy up. And so a lot of things happened then, including Ronan being traded from that team to Boston, and there's a series of circumstances, including the death of a relative of his, that has kind of impacted sort of their relationship. And then AJ is hired as the new GM for the Boston team, and she's been incredibly successful there. They've worked together for 6 years and she has turned this team around, but their working relationship is strained, and there's some stuff to do with his contract negotiations that are coming up that she's not negotiating with him, she's negotiating with his agent, but there's a lot of things that go on. And on top of that, in the last 6 months, he has recently found out that he is a father and that his ex-girlfriend has literally dropped this infant on his doorstep, and now he is raising this child on his own, and Abby is just an adorable little tiny baby. She absolutely adores AJ, who steps in a couple of times when nanny arrangements go wrong and there's a lot of forced proximity situations. AJ and Ronan realize that they're living in apartments next door to each other. There's a whole lot of those kind of little moments. They're forced to confront, one, their work relationship, but also the attraction and the feelings that they've kind of had over many years but have never been able to address. This is even more complicated because AJ is up for the GM of the Year award, and when they finally do agree that this relationship is something that they want to pursue, they're both invested in it, they then have to contend with the fact that this has terrible, terrible optics. And even though it's not something that's not allowed under either of their contracts, there is a power differential and that it looks bad from the outside. There's a lot that's going on in here. It was really interesting and I really enjoyed it. I think there are a couple of times in the writing that I noticed that there was a little bit of repetition for weird things that we'd been told at one point, and then it just popped up again and I'm like, we've already been told that. Like, it wasn't often, but it's just one of those things where you go, okay, you can tell that this is a self-published, because for the most part the editing is on point, the story is on point, the pace moves fairly quickly. I mean, it's a hefty book and I still managed to read it in a night, but yeah, just occasionally just little things popped up, which is just more of a writing technique, I think, sort of thing. But I like that we got to know members of the team. I like that the team is really close-knit and that Ronan realizes that, you know, he does actually have a family and a support network who want to see him happy around him, even though, you know, he feels like kind of isolated now that he's a single dad and he's literally trying to do all of these things. He's also the team captain and he doesn't really want to be team captain. He doesn't like being in the limelight. So, like, the whole thing is also an added complication. Hi guys, editing Steph. I forgot to add a content warning in this book. There are discussions around infertility and the inability to fall pregnant and have children, which is part of the conflict between AJ and her ex-husband. So just be mindful of that. I really enjoyed it and I will probably go back and check out other books in the Boston Rebels series at some point. So on that note, we have finished 4 physical books plus an extra book that are all pink and have all made me pretty damn happy. All right, on that note, it is getting late here. I've got a big day tomorrow and lots of things to do. So we need to wrap this up. I need to get some sleep. I'm honestly kind of thrilled with how successful this particular vlog has been because, one, pink is my favorite color, but also I've just been able to read some books that have been really good. That's all I want out of a vlog or a reading project, is just to have a stack of books that I read that I come away feeling really good from the stack. And we've done that. In the comments, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books or if you have plans to pick any of them up. Otherwise, feel free to share any other books with pink covers down below. Feel free to recommend them to me, or leave your favorite pink colored emoji down below. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.